Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about 3%, Season 1, Episode 2. It's called Chapter 2, Coins. Full spoilers for the episode as always. So this one gives a couple of more sort of parts of the process in terms of tests, but we had a large focus on Fernando, who was very much at the centre of both of the tests in terms of what he was going through and how he was kind of a core element in each.
Yeah, that seems accurate.
We also got a couple of flashbacks. We started more or less with a flashback of him as a kid and how, because we'd heard in the last episode about how his father kind of spoke to him and encouraged him to go through the process and how he should pass it and all that. But a lot of it was very much about him and his sort of perception of how he's perceived by the others. You know, he doesn't want pity. He doesn't want to be seen as someone who's trying to cure his legs. One of the biggest sort of emotional conversations I think this episode had was when he tells Michelle that he spent years accepting that he just couldn't walk. He'd gotten over it. It was done. It's fine. I'm over it. And now he's been given this small bit of hope.
At a young age.
Yeah. Obviously, we need to talk about the two tests that we go through, both of which were extremely tense for different reasons. The first one was here. You've got however much time. Just press the button when you're ready to tell us, but if you get it wrong, you're all eliminated.
Yeah.
So it's all of the sort of the main characters we've got. And nothing advanced that you're right there. Nothing certainly advanced it forward. But there is that scene with Fernando where she is trying to make him feel better, or that's what he takes it as. But she actually starts saying things like,
cause propaganda.
Yeah, you're not to blame for this. The people who make us do this are to blame for this, which is completely against how they all think. They all think, yes, give us this opportunity. We are so thankful for this. We should be happy. We should be gracious to our overlords that they're giving us this chance.
That was like that pledge they had to repeat, wasn't it?
Yeah, and she clearly is against that, and we know that she's against it because she's part of the cause. She's a mole. So
that's fair.
He describes how it's a murder, one's poisoning the other for having an affair, and so on. And that's when Raphael, the dickhead, that's how we'll always remember she's the doctor, and then Joanna actually comes up with the reason why the other guest isn't even paying attention is because she's blind. And
So I thought was particularly clever about how this scene played out. We don't have all the information they have or what he has to say all this. But as soon as he gets to the point, just before he says, because it's the only logical conclusion. Like when he goes, well, why is he reaching for her? It's like, because he's a doctor. It's like it's the only conclusion it could be following this story. And it kind of felt the same with her being blind. It's like she must be blind, even though we don't have the proof. It plays out like the story so logically that you kind of just get there just ahead.
Yeah, it also does a lot of things, like you say, it hides a lot of things from us. Like Joanna's reason for knowing she's blind is because her desk doesn't have a lamp. We've not really been shown that. Not really.
No, we may have had a second where it panned over it or whatever, but nothing lingered on it at any moment.
But there would have been no way we could have just seen that clue and got that. There'd have been no way we would have seen any of the other clues they mentioned, because they're all... And a part of that is the way that it's even shot. When they're... Before even Fernando gives his idea as to what's going on, there's a lot of quick cutting to the music. There's a lot of energy. It's almost as if they're all looking around the room at different points and focusing on different details. So it's really well directed in that sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it has this power play, and it's kind of this blind thing. She did say, no, it's blind because of this. She was very observant. Even though it seemed like she wasn't caring, she did kind of... there wasn't a time limit per se, and they weren't deciding anything super serious, but the way that they had to get it right, and because it was in opposing opinions.
I think that's kind of what's so clever about these tests. Even if they're not big things, they're not time limits, it doesn't matter, because this is it, it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
You're through or you're out. It always has high stakes.
And then the second test, of course, does have a time limit, and it's actually even simpler. You don't even have to figure anything out. It's just... There's 7 of them, and 6 of them can go...
To sink in, a few episodes at least. But 2 is pretty quick, I think, for what we usually are. So I feel like that means the characters are clearly defined and unique and distinct enough that we can... I do.
I only have subtitles on if it's not in English. So.
I have them on a lot of the time.
Yeah. But, yeah, so as soon as they start doing this, I'm like, okay, the 2 expendable ones, one of them has to be the one that goes, right? and they pick first, and both of them get like a long one. I'm like, huh, all right. Coin. Or she always stole the coin, because when she goes to put it back in at the start, when they're agreeing that they should decide as a team who should stay, she kept it on her the whole time. So she's been sneaky. See, you're wrong. I just proved you were wrong in an indirect way.
Any excuse.
Yeah. But no, and even Raphael's actually, it's quite funny because he sticks up for Joanna in that scene because he knows that she's like blackmailing him.
It's the way she just taps her ear and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
But I really laughed with, you know, when we, after the scene when they're all shocked that she's still there, and she walks past Raphael and she just sort of leans and goes, "Don't worry, you tried," and walks off.
He looks terrified.
Yeah, because he's always so like egotistical and like arrogant and, you know, loudmouth, but the moment she goes up and speaks to him and whispers to him, yeah, because that's how we end the episode. Yeah,
it feels like he's, you know, protecting someone in that sense, but that's why he's never letting them get caught. It's not for his own thing, it's for whoever this person is, for their benefit.
What I do think improves a lot in this episode actually is the team dynamic. We feel like we have this core group of characters now, and I think especially Michelle and Fernando have really good chemistry.
Definitely.
When they're trying to like cheer each other up and they're trying to like console each other at various points in the episode,
trying to get the other to join their point of view.
I don't know. It's good. I'm curious to see where more of this her being a mole comes into it. Obviously, we didn't get any of that in this episode, and I'm also curious to see what the next sets of tests are, because we know the next one's a group one because they mentioned that. But it's funny how so far we've been able to very easily distinguish between the episodes based on which tests.
Well, cubes, coins.
Yeah, cubes, coins. You know.
I kind of hope this trend keeps up all the way.